Welcome to the Monday, July 18th, 2022, first session of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Pandeleon.
Here.
Alderman Morris.
Here.
Alderman Karas.
Here.
Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Notes is absent. Alderman Preschlack.
Here.
Alderman Gashagarian.
Here.
Alderman Bushman.
Here.
Alderman Weber.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, everyone. First item on the agenda tonight is comments by the mayor, and the first item that I have to address is the 2022-2023 board and commission appointments and reappointments. And I will just read them off. It's a pretty lengthy list, so bear with me. But Audit Committee, Terrence Meiling, appointed from Ward 1, Fritz Hirsch, appointed from Ward 3, Ty Magnuson, reappointed from Ward 2, Tara Janos, reappointed and appointed as chair from Ward 2, Mark Dillon, reappointed from Ward 1. Building Review Board, Sally Downey and Richard Walter, reappointed from Wards 1 and 4 respectively. For the Cemetery Commission, Robert Warabo, appointed from the 3rd Ward, and Robert Thornbow, reappointed from the 1st Ward. For Croya, Christine Carr, Stephanie Manarino, and Megan Engelbert, all reappointed. Christine Carr from Lake Bluff, Stephanie Manarino from the 2nd Ward, and Megan Engelberg from the 1st Ward. For the Gorton Board, Mike Slover, appointed from Ward 2, and Bill Moskoff, reappointed from Ward 1. From the Housing Trust, Chris Baker, reappointed, not representing a ward. The Legal Committee, Art Murdas, appointed from Ward 1. The Library Board, Josh Jackson, appointed from Ward 1, and Robert Shaw, appointed from Ward 4. Historic Preservation Commission, Robin Pettit, reappointed from Ward 3. Plan Commission, Steve LaMontagne, appointed from Ward 2, and Jamie Moorhead, reappointed from Ward 1. Senior Resource Commission, Dennis Herman, appointed from Ward 4, Gail Stringer Wayne, reappointed as chair from Ward 3, and Jill Rosa, reappointed from Lake Bluff. Parks and Recreation Board, Bill Sheridan, appointed from Ward 2, Timo Berger, appointed from Ward 4, Mark Silver, reappointed and appointed as chair from Ward 2, and Casey Spirito, reappointed from Ward 2. And then last, Zoning Board of Appeals, Henry Kleeman, appointed from Ward 1, Arthur Miller, appointed from Ward 3, Pete Clemens, reappointed from Ward 3, and Lisa Naring, appointed as chair from Ward 3. I would entertain a motion to approve these appointments.
Seconded.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there being none, the appointments are completed. Thank you all, and thank you very much for the contributions of the Lake Forest Caucus in vetting all of these candidates, plus multiple candidates for every one of these seats. So it's a big task, and they do a great job. So thank you all on the caucus out there in television land. That's all I have today, but next on the agenda is comments by the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and members of City Council. Good evening. I have one item on the agenda, and that is a presentation from Rick Amos from the Friends of the Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation. I've asked Rick to come tonight to provide a financial update to the council. As most know, we've been blessed in this community to have the support of the Friends Foundation in taking on the planning, preparation, and execution of a lot of special events that happen in our community. At the top of that list is our annual July 4th Fireworks Festival. And as a result of the tragedy several weeks ago in Highland Park, the city and myself made the decision, I believe appropriately so, to cancel that event mere hours before the event was scheduled to take place. And again, while I have no doubt most would recognize that was the appropriate decision to make, certainly that decision has significant financial repercussions for the Friends Foundation, and so I've asked Rick to come here tonight to just help walk through that with the council and allow everyone to better understand what that cancellation has meant for the Friends Foundation.
Good evening. Thank you, City Manager. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight in front of you. You know, July 4th has forever probably impacted our community, but certainly for a long time. And it was a tough day for many, some more than others, obviously. Let me begin tonight, if I may, by first of all saying thank you. You know, the amount of time and effort it takes to plan these events is a big deal. And our foundation is very fortunate to be in charge of that, but certainly that doesn't happen without the support of City Council and with many within the organization. I mean, all the way down from Biddy and Joyce downstairs to the police and fire department, certainly the Park and Recreation Department. A lot of folks contribute to that. I think that the night of the event, we generally have about 85 city staff on hand supporting the event, doing various things throughout the night. And that process begins about 3-4 weeks before the event. So when we got the word about 11:45 that morning that we were going to cancel, which again we also believe as a foundation was the right decision to make, and we commend you on that decision. You know, the swift movement and action by city staff was absolutely tremendous. I mean, it went from handling the messaging to dealing with vendors to talking to patrons, and you know, we expedited the dismantling and the shutdown in about 3.5 hours, which was remarkable considering all the equipment and all the things going on to have that event. And so on behalf of the Friends, I want to thank the city, and I would certainly want to thank Sally and Joe and your staff, the police department, fire departments, streets, sanitation. I mean, there was a tremendous amount of activity on that field over those 3.5 hours because we were trying to get out of there as quickly as possible for the right reasons. So let me begin, first of all, with a big thank you for your assistance in that process. However, that being said, you know, with a new day and a new sunrise, we're faced with the realities of the decisions that were made. And again, they were the right decisions. In your packet, I believe the city manager has provided you an economic summary of the event in terms of the impact it's going to have on our foundation. Which is nothing short of tenuous at best for us. You know, we have an excess of outlay of cash. COVID changed the event planning oracle, if you will. We had the luxury for many years of being able to plan the event, schedule vendors, and pay them anywhere from 30 to 90 days after the event. It was wonderful. COVID changed all that. You know, the demand of vendors, the assurance that payments would be made, and the timeliness of resources and assets changed the dynamic where prepayment and certainly payment of the day of the event was now part of what we do. And so there's a tremendous amount of outlay of cash and capital required to schedule the event. So the foundation made the decision the day after the event that we would refund all of the pre-sold tickets being sent to us, which again we think was the right thing to do. We were getting a tremendous amount of emails. We had 1,400 purchasers bought pre-sale tickets, which is about 200% of what we normally get. So we were expecting a big turnout on that day. And so we immediately initiated a refund of those tickets as well as we reached out to our sponsors and indicated that we were meeting with city staff and trying to figure out how we were going to handle their contributions and donations for the event. And I'm happy to say thus far, without barring a few hiccups, it's gone pretty well in terms of everybody being patient, certainly understanding the situation. But that being said, the foundation, quite candidly, is in a tough space. We're a thinly capitalized organization from year to year and require the support of our sponsors. Certainly the city is a big supporter of ours, as well as revenue we generate from the events for sponsorship and ticket sales and food and beverage sales. And so with zeros across the board on all those things, you can imagine we're in a difficult financial position. So I provided some information to the city manager. I believe all of you have some of that information. So I come before you tonight, I guess, hat in hand, asking that the city consider supporting what we're trying to do and help us kind of get through this process, if you will. So not to compound the matters, as you know, we were planning a banner year for the event. As I said, ticket sales and sponsorship was up over previous years. Maybe that was part of the post-COVID. Folks are ready to get out and about, and obviously the events at Highland Park kind of changed that. So it is what it is. As you probably also know, we are on the brink of the Lake Forest Music Festival on Saturday, August 20th. So that's 4 short weeks away. And we have folks kind of waiting for word from us as to, is that event going to continue to happen or not happen here in just 4.5 weeks out. And so, certainly the profits that we make from the 4th of July, if you will, kind of carry us through for the music festival. And then also they kind of carry us through for the tree lighting ceremony, which we have on the Friday after Thanksgiving, which I would add was going to be an expanded program this year over previous years to kind of make it more inclusive and a little more expand what we think we've learned from throwing events to make that a better event for all. So I don't know if you have any questions as regards to the worksheet or if there's any information I can provide for you in terms of asking for your support in terms of financially helping the foundation get through this difficult time. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Thank you, Rick, for the presentation, and you and all the foundation members for all the work that you've done to put on these significant events and tradition for our community. My question is in regard to ticket sales. If at any point did the foundation consider asking the residents to keep their ticket purchase as a donation to the foundation in lieu of the event, the tragedy that happened that day?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. We did talk about that, and we do have a strategy in place. As I mentioned, there were about 1,400 individual buyers that bought anywhere from 1 to, I think our largest person bought 12 tickets for the event. And we thought the most efficient thing to do, because the event was canceled, was to simply return the funds. We have had folks reach out to us, and we are working on a campaign to go back to our buyers and say, hey, thank you for supporting the event. We had to cancel, as you know. Please come to the music festival in 4 weeks. We'd love to have you there. But more importantly, I think we're putting together a marketing program based upon how we do over the next 4 to 5 weeks and go out to folks that have supported our events over the years and probably make an ask, if you will, of would you consider making a donation to the foundation? Here's all the great things that we do and support us ongoing. We're wrestling with the vendors currently right now, so that forecasted expense amount is kind of a moving number a little bit. The good news is that's down about $25,000-$30,000 from where it started on the 5th of July, and there could be some movement yet still, but because of the process that it takes with some of the vendors, and there's so many that work with us, we're kind of negotiating each one off. For example, I was on the phone with the fireworks vendor out of Indiana today. pointing out to them the terms and conditions of our contract are different than what they normally thought. And so they wanted us to pay the full amount, whereas in that case, we negotiated a 1-year rescheduling clause, if you will. So in essence, we're able to defer the cost of all that to a year out, which according to the new CEO, he's like, you're the only person in the country that has that clause. So, I would like to say we're smart, but the reality is that event takes so many folks to be involved, let alone on Wednesday at Country Club. We really have one day to host that event because their golf course is closed on that day. So that's where we set up for the fireworks. But back to your question, yeah, you will see efforts from us to go out and do some fundraising from our supporters.
Yeah, I think, in hindsight, of course, at this point, but when the cash was in hand, you probably maybe, just guesstimating, could have maybe kept about 70,000. It's always harder to ask the hand again to donate once you've already have it. But I'm happy to see that you have a plan to move forward.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can gain some support from the community to help support the foundation and continue these traditions that you have.
Oh, thank you.
Thank
Yeah, I expected about 800 emails the following day from people asking for refunds. Because we posted on the site that we would be processing them, we only got about 40. So again, we think in hindsight it was the right move. We'll see, to your point, if we're lucky enough to go back to that well and ask people to support us again.
Other questions?
Thanks for the great job you did.
Well, thank you for your questions. Thank you for your support. We love what we do. We think it's a big benefit for the community, and we're really excited about continuing to do this work. But I don't want to be overly dramatic, but without some sort of assistance here, the future of the foundation is really up against the wall.
Is there an admissions fee for the music festival? How do you generate revenue from participants?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, we do. We have a dynamic pricing model for the 4th of July event as well as the music festival. And essentially what that means is the earlier you buy the tickets, you get a discount. So it's a progressive model that a lot of events are now doing. So we have sponsorship dollars that we get, obviously, from people throughout the community. Lake Forest Bank and Trust is a big one of our sponsors. The city's a part of that as well, some others. We do have we have various ticket level prices from general admission for youths all the way up to VIP passes, which includes entrance and then food and beverage cups and souvenir mugs and things of that nature if you want those sort of things. So there's somewhere everywhere between, if you will, a $20 fee up throughout the day for the music festival. So primarily from food and beverage sales, from ticket sales and sponsorships where our revenue comes from.
Ticket sales are in progress. You're selling tickets now?
We are in progress, although it's been a little slow because folks are asking us to guarantee if they buy tickets that we're going to go through with the event. And so, we wanted to wait until after this evening before we assured people that we were moving forward. But the planning process has been underway. But to be candid, our headliner, if you're a country music fan, is a duo called Maddie and Tay. Our final payment to them is due tomorrow, and their management company is wondering if I'm going to pay it. They've announced, we booked them at the right time. Sometimes you get lucky, sometimes you're good. I think in this case we were lucky. They just won Duo and Group of the Year in country music 3 months ago, and they're starting a world tour 2 weeks after they're playing our venue. So part of me thinks they wouldn't mind getting out of this if we cancel, because they can probably make a lot more money playing somewhere else. But so far we've got them committed.
Well, they're probably a big draw. So.
They should be a big draw. Yeah, we're expecting about 4,000 to 5,000 people for the music festival, which last year we had about 2,400 last year. So we expect a doubling of the crowd. Now, one could debate, will that happen given the proximity and timing to Highland Park just 5 weeks ago? So, our numbers in the planning for the music festival have been ratcheted down a little bit because we think, may not quite get to the 4,000 or 5,000 that we were hoping for given the timing of the Highland Park event.
Alderman Rommel.
Along that same line, and maybe this is more a question for our police chief, are we planning to upgrade our security for that event, possibly for Lake Forest Day as well? I haven't heard anything along those
I'll be
lines?
happy to jump in and just say that there is additional planning and steps underway. Obviously, I don't think it's something we would share in any detail publicly, but no question, our police department will be well prepared for both events.
Well, do you think it would help to sort of imply that publicly, that we are going to be, upgrading our security? I don't know.
Certainly, we can give it some thought. I mean, of course, it's important for people to feel comfortable and safe attending our community events, and we can think through whether there's messaging that helps communicate something to that effect without obviously going into any level of detail as to what planning may or may not be occurring.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Does staff have any observations about next steps with respect to this issue?
Yeah, no, I mean, really, obviously, this is intended to be a discussion for the council, but I will note that while this came together, of course, very last minute, the memo and supporting documentation and financial summary you received did come with it a financial ask to provide some relief and support to the foundation in light of not necessarily just lost potential net profits, but for significant expenses that are already being incurred and may continue to be incurred in the future, just given the timing of the last minute timing of the cancellation. So again, would look to the council to get a better sense of what the appetite might be. I know there wasn't any specific ask of the foundation. I would say from my perspective, I think certainly starting at actual expenses incurred from, both as of today and recognizing that there's likely to be invoices that'll continue to trickle in the weeks ahead. Considering some sort of relief for the foundation for all of those expenses is warranted, and then anything above and beyond that in the context of some of their anticipated profits, recognizing the reliance they have on those to help fund other events is certainly within the council's purview. But I would note, I do think consideration of making them whole on the expenses they're incurring have already incurred and will continue to incur for this event is appropriate, given that, again, while it is a Friends Foundation event, and they do a very good job putting it on, it was ultimately the city's decision, not the Friends' decision to cancel the event at the last minute. I appreciate Rick's comments, and I'm comforted knowing they were supportive of the decision made, but I think, there is a responsibility in acknowledging that, the financial predicament they find themselves in was effectively caused by a decision that we made.
Well, I think we're running ahead of budget. Director Hollop can comment, but I would support that given our current financial state. We're doing okay. So.
Yeah, and I guess I'd also just remind everybody of the significant financial benefits that the city's received from the Friends Foundation running these events for the last, 16 years? 16. It's been a great asset to the community. These are dollars that probably would be spent out of the city coffers if they weren't being funded by others and privately. So, there's every once in a while you have to step up and make sure the machine keeps running.
And I would note along those lines, because I've had conversations with colleagues, we were certainly not alone in canceling July 4th festivities that day in the area. We are unique only in having this sort of independent foundation that is responsible for hosting the event. In almost every other town, it is done either by an independent park district in the community or by the municipality. And in those instances, it's the units of government that are out all of the expenses we're talking about now.
Do you need a motion on this, or just a sense?
Which
of
I
the
think just a
council?
sense of the council.
Yeah, I
and
think
I
sense
think
of
I'm hearing it, that
amount.
there's
Yeah,
a receptivity to looking at this. Do anybody that really thinks we should just not do this at all?
Well, not quite the opposite. I'm just worried about the immediacy of the
Right,
of
I
the
guess that-
issue. That's probably
Yeah.
the biggest
So
issue.
how do we get to a decision? I mean, we've got, our next meeting is on August 1st, I think. So that's
Yeah.
2 weeks. I don't know what the timing, how do we get to
I would think if
resolution.
the council could formulate some consensus on what type of financial relief you'd like to provide, directing staff to prepare the appropriate documents for ratification at the August 1st meeting would make sense. Does that make sense, Elizabeth?
What if we do a range of costs, and give the staff authority within that range to go ahead?
Sure, and I would say because there is a fairly large delta at this point between the forecasted expenses and actual expenses incurred to date, if the documentation on actual expenses to date is fairly cut and dry, if there was immediate relief considered by the council on that number and or anything in addition to that, then I think it'd be fairly easy to structure or provide direction to staff to be meeting regularly with the Friends Foundation. And as more invoices trickle in and the expenses continue to add up, then certainly the staff could authorize a repayment or reimbursement, I should say, of those.
May I add a comment, maybe to help with some clarity? So the forecasted expense amount, the 208, we think is a pretty solid number. We've been staring at these numbers for 6 months now, so you're seeing it for the first time. We look at it almost every day. The difference between forecasted and actual is there's a delay from vendors in terms of invoicing us and sending us their invoices. We are doing our level best to negotiate, some discounts, if you will, or try and come off that number. So we're pretty confident in the 208 number. 35, 45 days from now is going to be real.
Well, so can we do a not to exceed number and
So let me
now?
let me add to that, if I may. So given the size of our foundation, we're audited ourselves. So we'll have good, clear documentation for you to review at some point in the future. So the challenge for us is we know 208 is coming, and you could argue that our profit number for the year is challengeable, given the size of last year's profit number. Now, I would make 2 points around that. One is last year was first year coming out of COVID, so it was lower than what we've traditionally received, but an actual number. So maybe a little bit of a delta there. On the plus side, I would say, given what happened on the 4th, had we gone through with the event, about 70% of our ticket revenue is day of. A lot of people decide last minute or they want to wait on the weather. So, 70%. Given what happened that day, there's no question that less people would have come out to the event, just given the uneasiness of attending an event, let alone their own public safety. So certainly the 125, if we're being totally open and honest with ourselves, is a debatable number. So, one would argue the two of those get to the 334. The difference or the challenge is the 125 or some fraction thereof goes towards the music festival. So, if the council is gracious enough to say, all right, we'll cover your 208, the problem is that makes us whole by August 1st, if you will, but we have no runway, if you will, to have the music festival. So, said bluntly, we could probably cover all the vendor payments for the 4th of July that was canceled, but we would probably have to not do the music festival because we wouldn't have any funding to pay vendors and kind of get that program up and running. So,
So
certainly
Rick, excuse me if you don't mind, will you put out a communication to the community that says, hey, we know we refunded your tickets, but we'd like you to give a donation?
Yeah.
I feel like that's an opportunity there.
No question there's an opportunity. So I think we're trying to move in step here. If the council's supportive of what we're doing and is going to provide financial support to us and still wants us to have the music festival, which we're acting as if that's going to happen as of today. Mm-hmm. Certainly, if you say yes, we're gonna do whatever tonight, we're gonna move tomorrow to get the word out and communicate that the music festival is on, and our marketing plans, which are already in place and we're already scheduled to take place, will go as usual. But to your point, we'll up the marketing effort and the fundraising effort between really now and probably November to, in essence, do everything we can to to raise as much support as we can, financial support, because quite honestly, the foundation's goal at some point in the future is to not have to come before council and ask for support, and that this becomes a self-funding enterprise. I mean, that's ultimately where we're trying to go with all the events that we're hosting, and that's probably a couple years out, but certainly we feel like we're moving in the right direction. So canceling the music festival, if you will, would keep the foundation alive, keep our vendors happy, but would really have us retrenching, trying to figure out, okay, where do we go from here?
So can you give us a not-to-exceed number that you would be comfortable with tonight?
In terms of total funding from city council, 334 clearly is on the high side. 208 is clearly on the low side. So if you wanted to earmark 275, 300, which is where ultimately I think it's going to be, and then we can come back at another time and revisit actuals and kind of true up, if you will. I'm sure our foundation would be more than happy to do that, because we're not trying to benefit from the process, but at the same time, we don't want to be undercapitalized.
Like your arrangement with the headliner, I'm not trying to understand that in terms of costs, in terms of, you've said you rescheduled them for next year. What's the expectation financially to them this year?
Yeah, so our headliner for the music festivals, are you talking about?
No.
Or for the
fourth.
4th of July? So the musical commitments are now we're not the only community that's figured out doing these events is a great opportunity for communities for doing great things for the residents. So the contracting model has changed in that the artists have to be fully paid 30 days before the event, and it's non-refundable. So we did that for the 4th of July. The same opportunity exists in front of us here for the music festival. So on July 20th, which is Thursday, right?
So you've already paid $95,000 to the talent who was supposed to play this past.
Well,
July
the
4th.
talent was 42,000 and some change. The staging, production, lighting, sound, all that kind of stuff adds up to the generators, the power. So the whole production of the musical performance, if you will, is the number you're referring to.
All right, can I make a motion unless there's further? I would just like to make a motion that we, is there another comment?
I don't think there'd be a motion because there's nothing on the agenda for action. I think it would just be developing a general consensus and direction for staff to come back
Well,
for
I
something.
would suggest that we come to a consensus to give money to the foundation not to exceed $300,000, and then staff will have the discretion to take care of their obligations that are upcoming and give them enough money that they can move forward with the music festival, which I think is just fabulous. And thank you for your understanding, for the work that your staff did, and for moving forward with these events. It's very much appreciated.
Well, thank you for saying that. We really enjoyed doing it, so we're glad you appreciate it.
And I'd like to point out, just on my prior comment, if you amortize that over the 16 years they've been contributing to the community, it's about $20,000 a year. So,
Yeah.
I'm in
It's a good
support
deal.
of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
any objections?
No.
Okay, well, I think you have your marching orders.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
And thanks again for all the hard work you guys do. And I know these things are always, are never without risk. And sometimes it's the weather and sometimes it's criminals. You just don't know. So,
We'll have force majeure insurance for our next event.
yeah, good luck getting that. So it may not be worth what you have to pay for it, unfortunately. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, and that was my last formal item, but before I turn it back to you, Mayor, I did want to take the opportunity to just introduce to the council and the community Reagan Walsh, the new management analyst in the city manager's office. Don't be shy, Reagan, you can stand up. So Reagan officially joined us last week. It was his first week on the job, and I believe an email was sent out to the council, but he spent the last 2 years working for the consulting firm Thomas Miller and Associates. He was an intern for the city of Olathe. Am I pronouncing that right? I don't know Kansas very well. Mike Thomas will give me grief, but yes, he's a fellow Jayhawk like our own Mike Thomas. So Mike was happy to hear that, but. Truly, we're really happy to have Reagan on board. We're going to ensure he's pretty active in in providing some support and special project involvement with some of our council subcommittees. So hopefully all of you will get the opportunity to be spending some time with them as well. But I knew he was here tonight, so I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce him and officially welcome him on board.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
We look forward to seeing you at the podium here in the not-too-distant future.
And that concludes my report. Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Next item is opportunity for citizens to address the city council on non-agenda items. If there's anybody from the public that would like to address the council on a non-agenda item, please identify yourself. Okay, seeing none, I would move on to committee reports. The Finance Committee report, we will have a public hearing on the city's annual appropriation ordinance. I need a motion to open the public hearing,
So moved.
Second.
and then we'll need a roll call vote.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye?
Alderman Karas. Aye. Alderman Rommel.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Okay, then I would turn the meeting over to Elizabeth Holub for consideration of the annual appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 2023 and approval of rollovers. This is the final reading.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. As you heard in June, when you approved first reading of the appropriation ordinance, despite your approval of the budget and the comprehensive fiscal plan, the appropriation ordinance serves as the legal mechanism authorizing the expenditure of public funds. We're required by statute to have that appropriation ordinance adopted and filed with the county clerk by the end of the first quarter or July 31st for our city's fiscal year. Included in the appropriation ordinance are rollovers from FY22. Those are projects that either started or were not started in fiscal year 22. And so staff is requesting the rollover of those funds to fiscal year 23 to allow those expenditures to be incurred. We did include a worksheet that kind of takes you from the adopted budget in April to the appropriation ordinance, since there are some things included and excluded in each of the documents to try to lay out how we get from the budget to the appropriation ordinance numbers. So I'm happy to answer any questions. This would be requesting final approval of the fiscal year 23 appropriation ordinance.
Questions from the council? Okay, again, this being a public hearing, I would open the floor to members of the public that would like to comment on this. Seeing none, I would bring it back to the council for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Rommel.
Yay.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes.
Yes, I'm going to turn. Just totally lost my place. There we go. Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Karas. Aye. 7 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Next Finance Committee agenda item is the GFOA Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting Award, presented by Alderman Morris.
Mayor Pandeleon, can we have a motion to close the public
Oh,
hearing?
I'm sorry. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Karas.
Aye.
Alderman Rommel.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
7 yeas, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. Excuse the miss on my part. Okay, I won't reintroduce you.
Okay, very good. Well, it's my pleasure to, again, this year, it's the 43rd consecutive year that the Government Finance Officers Association has awarded Lake Forest a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for its fiscal year 21 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, which is, again, a tremendous achievement from the Finance Department. I'll note that there are only 367 organizations, governmental organizations in Illinois, which is about 5.3% of the almost 7,000 units of government that get this achievement. It's really extraordinary, and once again, with a lot of work and a lot of numbers, we've come out on top. So thank you very much. But as part of that, We also have an award of financial reporting achievement that we're going to give to our Assistant Finance Director, Diane Hall, because she's central to everything that goes on in this financial reporting and works really hard all year round to assemble a lot of numbers. So, Diane, I'm going to give you this, and we might get a picture of this, so come on up. And very small text, I'm not going to read it, but I'm going to hold it and put it on your own. Congratulations.
And if you're interested, anybody who goes on our website should be able to find under financial reporting or financial transparency a wealth of really clear, really easy to follow information laid out in truly intuitive sort of graphics, just information about all the details, drilling down as deep as you want to go on our website for all the financials of the city. I can't imagine, frankly, I think if we put that up against pretty much any other municipality in the country, I'd be hard pressed to think that there's another town anywhere that has anything close to the transparency that we have. So congratulations, Diane. You do a great job. Well deserved. The next item on the agenda is approval of an additional fiscal year 2022 transfer out of the general fund as directed by the City Council in the amount of $2.1 million to fund one-time expenditures to be determined at a later date. Elizabeth again?
Thank you again, Mayor. So Diane, doing the great work that she does every year, has closed out fiscal year 22 and prepared all of the audit work papers for our independent financial audit. To give you an idea, they began on July 5th, and this is the third and final week of field work. The first week, there was a crew of 5 from the audit firm posing questions and requesting information from Diane, and that pretty much goes on for 3 weeks. But we do have an opportunity, as we do each year, to reflect back on the final actuals for our fiscal year to determine if the council would like to transfer any additional funds out of the general fund to another fund. This first slide is a slide that we looked at in March for the operating budget workshop for fiscal year 23. And at that point, we showed you general fund revenues, expenses, and transfers out. Transfers, again, are not outflows of resources. They're just movement of funds from the general fund to another dedicated fund. We showed you the comparison of the budget, and we showed you the projected. Projected at the time was what staff had developed as their estimated actuals for fiscal year 22 based on the year-to-date actuals. And then you can see the variance in the far right column, black being to the good, red being to the negative. We highlighted for you some of the significant variances we were seeing in general fund revenues, specifically a lot from income tax, where we saw overages for a little over a year on personal income tax in fiscal year 22. We were seeing overages more based on corporate taxes rather than personal taxes. But again, this is a phenomenon going on across the state where income tax revenue is just very high right now. We also had building permits and sales taxes coming in better than budgeted. The middle section looks at general fund expenses. About 75% of the general fund expenses is personnel related. So we spend a lot of time on personnel projections for the year, we budget full employment, full year. So any natural vacancies and turnovers throughout the year are going to typically generate a budget savings. So we had those forecasted for you in March. And at that time, because of the surplus we were projecting, the Finance Committee ultimately approved additional transfers at the bottom highlighted in yellow. Transfers to the Park and Public Land Fund, Housing Trust Fund, and Self-Insurance Fund, but also a significantly increased transfer from the General Fund to the Capital Improvements Fund. We had budgeted $250, and we were forecasting a little over $2 million. So we told you at the time that these were fairly conservative, that we would come back in July with final numbers and hopefully have some additional funds available for transfer if the council wished to do so. So this looks at the general fund a little differently than the first slide. And what it does is you can see on the total estimated revenues, you've got the budget, you've got the projected number, but then that second column is the actual preliminary. So this is what our actual revenues are for fiscal year 22 currently. And then in the variance at the right side, the gray column, that is the variance from actual to projected. So this is improvement from what we had forecasted in March. So for example, the general fund revenues came in actually 857,000 better than what we were forecasting in March. The large reason for that is the delay in receipts of income tax and sales tax through the state. We have to wait until July actually to get April sales tax. So there is some lag on really knowing what those actual numbers are going to be. The expenses I've shown, rather than by type of expense, I've just given you the department summary, just for a little bit of a different perspective of expenses. So by department in the general fund, what was budgeted, what we have as actual expenses for fiscal year 22, what the department was projecting in March, and then again, the favorable variance, and in some cases just slightly negative from projected, all within budget. So what does that mean? That means that when we come down to the bottom numbers, you can see at the bottom of the third column, that 725,000, that was our working operating surplus in the general fund. We did want to leave some available just in case things changed in the last few months of the fiscal year. So we have that 725, but then in the far right column, you come down to a net operating to the better than what we projected of 1.9 million. We have to back out of that the rollovers that you just approved in the appropriation ordinance. So those general fund items that are now moving to 23, we back those out and we get to a net of 1.67 million. When you add that to the 725 surplus from March, you get a potential additional transfer out of the general fund, keeping the reserves the same as last year of just under 2.4 million. The reason why your recommendation today is 2.1 is because that is the capacity we have under the appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 22. So last July, you approved an appropriation ordinance for fiscal year 22. We can't exceed that. And so in order to stay under that number, we are recommending an additional transfer out of the general fund of $2.1 million. Those would be available to fund one-time expenditures to be determined at a later date, usually at your November capital workshop, because it just provides us additional one-time revenue to look at our 5-year CIP and unfunded projects. And the staff recommendation is to split that transfer, $500,000 to the Park and Public Land Fund and $1.6 million to the Capital Improvements Fund. So that is the recommendation for you this evening, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Elizabeth?
No.
Okay. Well, there's also, yeah. No. Oh, Alderman Bushman, sorry.
Thank you. You mentioned that we have this excess and did a transfer in fiscal year 21 and 22. What funds were they transferred into? Do you recall?
So, oh my goodness, you're taking me back. So 1 year, you'll recall we did, and I think it was fiscal year 20, to the Police and Fire Pension Fund. So in that particular year, it was a loss, similar to what we're going to see this year. The investments did not return what we had anticipated because of market conditions. And so some of that additional funding went into the Police and Fire Pension Fund as an additional contribution. That was 20. And then last year in 21, we did Park and Public Land Fund, we did Housing Trust Fund, and we did the Capital Improvements Fund. I think if I recall, those were the 3 funds we transferred to last year.
I was thinking how much was going into the capital improvement fund, but it sounds like we haven't funded that much from prior excesses that we're transferring out.
Yeah, I mean, we have put a lot into the capital improvement fund. I can get the specific numbers to you, and keep in mind that we did increase it in March by 1.8 million. So this would be in addition to the 1.8 million you approved in March. So it would actually be 3.4 million moving from the general fund to the capital improvement fund and available for the 5-year CIP in November.
And just a question of clarification, the transfer into the Park and Public Land Fund, which is described as providing for park and recreational capital improvements. We're not doing anything here that influences this question raised by the legal women voters about a improvement at Deer Path. They're two unrelated things.
Correct, and that's a great question. The Park and Public Land Fund, its only ongoing revenue source is impact fees. And so the last few years, we have been challenged by not that much in impact fees being generated by new development. And so the last few years, we have carved out transfers to Park and Public Land as well as Housing Trust because they lack ongoing funding sources. But yes, this does not designate this for any single project. And just becomes funds available for the City Council Finance Committee to review in November.
Thank you.
George, just sort of,
Alderman Goshgarian.
I'm sorry, tangential to that, I apologize. Thank you very much, Elizabeth. You know, point of concern with the PPL fund, now that we don't really have a steady, predictable stream, from my friend Alderman Bushman, you may recall that when we purchased the Joytime property, I believe it was about 10 months ago. That is where that money came from, so it's not slated for any particular project, but that fund has to have those revenues available. Has anybody in the department started to consider where we might find a steady revenue stream? I'm curious because certainly in these flush years, we're able to make these transfers, but not knowing what the future holds, I think we want to seriously consider what else we can do to make sure that that fund does have adequate levels in it, so we can take those actions that are appropriate, for the city as a whole.
Yeah, the last 2 fiscal years, to Alderman Goshgarian's point, we have identified that as a budgetary challenge, something that we would want to look at and study, what would make sense as an ongoing revenue source. I would just note in the Park and Public Land Fund, those improvements tend to be tennis court refurbishments, playground equipment replacement. They don't tend to be the big significant capital projects. So for the athletic field specifically, the design for the athletic fields was actually funded in the Capital Improvements Fund, not the Park and Public Land Fund, just because by nature of the fund, it can't absorb projects that large.
Yeah, that all goes back to the basic issue of the fact that we don't have a park district to put a line item on our tax bill and spend it as they see fit. It all is in the city budget, and all our park and rec expenditures have to compete, especially capital expenditures, have to compete with roads and sewers and other kinds of important community outlays to get funding. And it's good because it's important. It's an important element of why our property taxes stay low, but it does sometimes require us to play catch up, as I like to say, and we're certainly doing that right now with a lot of our park improvements, and Deer Path is a significant part of that. So we sort of underinvested because other projects had more urgency over a long period of time, and now we've got to catch up. But I do know that there's been ongoing discussion about a permanent funding source for the park, the park fund, if you will. And I just don't know. We'll have to get serious about that, I think.
Yeah, and I'll just piggyback to say I provided direction to Finance Director Holub and Parks and Recreation Director Swarthout to collectively think through some recommendations to the council on a permanent, sustainable funding model for the PPL fund. I'm hopeful that's something we might be able to bring to the council in winter and into early spring as you guys entertain your budget workshop then.
There is an opportunity here for the public to comment on these proposed transfers. Any member of the public would like to speak on this? Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve an additional fiscal year 2022 transfer out of the general fund as directed by the city council in the amount of $2.1 million to fund one-time expenditures to be determined at a later date.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Karas.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is omnibus vote items. We have 6 items. First is approval of the June 21st, 2022 City Council meeting minutes. Second is approval of a resolution of appreciation for retiring members of boards and commissions as follows. From the Audit Committee, Vince Sparrow as chairman and William McFadden. Cemetery Commission, Rami Lopat. Gorton Board, Karen Rohde. Historic Preservation Commission, Bruce Grieve, Steve LaMontagne, and Elizabeth Sperry. Legal Committee, Anthony Mancini. Library Board, Jermaine Arnson and Elizabeth Grob. Senior Resource Commission, Mark Dillon. Park and Recreation Board, Nancy Duffy and Paul Best as chairman. Zoning Board of Appeals, Mike Seaman as chairman and Nancy Novitt. Third is approval of the check register for the period of June 1st to June 30th, 2022. Fourth, consideration of ordinances approving recommendations from the Building Review Board, first reading, and if desired by the City Council, final approval. Fifth, consideration of ordinances approving recommendations from the Zoning Board of Appeals, also first reading, and if desired, final approval. And sixth, consideration of the waiver of permit fees for the splash pad at Town Line Park located at 1555 Town Line Road. That's an approval by motion. Any items that any member of the council would like to be, to have removed or taken separately? Comments? Questions? Okay. There being none, I would entertain a motion to approve the 6 omnibus items as presented.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Preschlack.
Aye.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Karas.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is additional items for discussion and comments by council members. I understand Alderman Rummel would like to say something?
Something, yes, thank you. Let me give a little bit of background to this. Very early in my tenure, I received a call from a resident of Whispering Oaks who said, do you realize that our sidewalks aren't all connected, that they just go around in a circle? So in order to go from one block to the next block, you're going over grass. And indeed, that is the case, not throughout all of Whispering Oaks, but throughout a number of intersections. I brought this to the attention of the staff back then, and it, rightly so, seemed like sort of a local problem, and there was no immediate solution to it, but our wonderful staff, as they often do, persisted in trying to find a solution, and they applied for a grant. And so it's my pleasure to announce tonight that we have, in fact, received a grant from the Illinois Department of Transportation, and it's for Safe Routes to School funding, which is out of the state budget, and we have received $140,000 to put toward this project. There were only 57 projects totaling over $12.3 million that were approved, and we were one of them. So I am absolutely delighted that this is going through, and I want to say a special thanks to Jim Lockefear. Are you here? No, don't see you. Hopefully, Director Thomas will carry that sincere thank you to him, because I think this was his initiative, and to Byron Coots, who is here, not here, carry it forth to him as well. And thank you for their efforts. And it's just wonderful to see how the staff persisted and found this money. And hopefully our children will have a safer route to school because of it. And I certainly hope we'll be able to promote this and maybe even let Cherokee School know specifically that the children can ride their bikes to Cherokee School much more easily thanks to this grant that and those construction that will be forthcoming. So just a joy to be able to announce that. Thank you.
Great, great news. We've gotten very good at this grant thing, or we're getting very good at it.
Yeah.
And the next thing I would like to do is turn it over to City Manager Wisha for presentation of fabulous gifts and prizes to our departing Alderman Jennifer Karras from the First Ward.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor, and I will say that while these changing of the guard meetings are always a little bittersweet, it is very nice to be able to do this in person again. It was pretty unceremonious for former aldermen to have to say their farewells via Zoom. So nice to all be back in the room to be able to do this. And I won't steal the mayor and council's thunder in recognizing all of Alderman Karras's contributions and accomplishments here in the city. But before I hand these out, I do just want to say on behalf of all city staff, thank you for all that you did for us. I think your willingness to challenge assumptions, to push us to think differently and creatively about how we were doing certain things has no doubt led to some significant contributions in how we operate as a staff, and has made us all the better for it. And so again, on behalf of the entire city staff, we thank you very much for your support and your contributions. And with that, I'm very happy to commence the time-honored tradition here of providing gifts and prizes to our outgoing aldermen. I have a few, so bear with me. I'll be making the rounds, but first, a gorgeous floral bouquet.
What's the difference between a gift and a fabulous prize?
Well, that's for you to determine. So here, I'm just going to keep them coming.
Okay, thank you. That's very nice, thank
So
you.
we have all of these over here. So in addition to the flowers, we have several additional gifts and one more on the way, and fitting and keeping with all of these supply chain issues that the city's dealing with. We have a gift that was supposed to have been here a week ago and is not yet here, but pleased to be able to provide you with a tree certificate that affords you the ability to plant a tree in your honor anywhere in the community. You can work with Corey Wirma, but if you have a tree and a location in mind, this is a tree that will be planted in your honor.
The beach.
That's a fabulous gift.
On behalf
There you
of
go.
our Public Works
Now for the
Department.
prizes.
That's right. On behalf of our Public Works Department, and certainly in recognition of your contributions to the Public Works Committee, I will just hand you this and you can open it yourself.
Now?
This one you can open now, the
Okay.
others you don't have to.
What is this, Jed?
It's well wrapped. We've been working
Oh,
at this.
I know what it is. Does it get to go somewhere? Do I have to?
Wherever you want.
Ours from Mike hangs in our garage.
You and Michael can figure it out.
That's great. Oh, that's great. No, that's really, that's so fun.
Oh, yay.
Avenue and Boulevard.
And then this here, no obligation to open this in front of everybody,
Okay.
so,
All right.
but,
Okay, no
Thank you so
alliteration.
much.
no problem.
Wow.
Happy to
Thank you.
provide you that, and
I hope
with
it's from the
that, Mr.
pop-up
Mayor, I'm happy
store.
to turn it back over to you.
Thank you very, very much.
Well, I actually wanted to, Jennifer, do you have anything you'd like to say before we all say nice things about you?
Whatever order you'd like. I do have some remarks, but whatever order you'd like.
Well, I'd just like to say, in a relatively brief tenure, you have made more of an impact on this community than most of us ever will. So we now have some institutions to thank you for. The pop-up shop being probably the most obvious, but the Lake Forest Love blog, a lot of the good thinking that went into to various marketing initiatives, the marketing committee, and then also, the service that you gave on the Public Works Committee was quite valuable. But we will always remember you every time we see the pop-up shop, and the fact that all these different not-for-profit organizations were brought together and are now working together synergistically, which never happened before. Just a great idea and a great execution. So thank you very much, and I'll leave it to the rest of the council to follow on.
Maybe I can start being in Ward 1.
Right, there you go, your colleague.
So Jennifer, I want to thank you sincerely, really, for serving with me as a Ward 1 alderman. During the past 2 years, as I've watched you learn how to be an alderman and execute, you've been such a responsive alderman for our ward. And I just think about the quick responses you've had to the ward residents. When they're coming up with questions, you're quick to respond. When they have concerns, you're very patient and listen to everybody and what their concerns are. And if they have complaints, you really go to work to try and help them solve that problem that they're bringing up. So as George said, you've been such a passionate advocate for the city. There's obviously Lake Forest Love, the pop-up shops, the marketing emphasis that you're always driving to bring more recognition to the city. It's really remarkable. And of course, you're always there at all those events photographing everything that's going on. So it's been tremendous. So I just look at your commitment to your job as an alderman, the committees that we have to serve on. It's all been very impressive. So I just want to thank you very much for serving our community and being our Ward 1 alderman. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ward 2, we'll just go in numerical order. First of all, it's my sincere wish that I was not bidding you farewell from this council. In my opinion, you've been one of the most consequential individuals to sit on this dais. You applied your considerable professional expertise to upgrading the city's marketing program to a point where it's really unrecognizable from the past. You've been the inspiration behind the city's seasonal pop-up stores at both the east and the west train stations. Those pop-up stores have now become a part of the city's holiday celebrations. They brought such joy to our town, even in the midst of the pandemic. The docket has a brand-new look, thanks to your input. The city's weekly newsletter also took on a new look, thanks to you. But my favorite, and perhaps the most emblematic of Alderman Karras, is her founding of the Lake Forest Love newsletters. The title alone suggests the sentiments of the newsletter's founder. Jennifer truly loves Lake Forest, its people, its schools, its not-for-profit organizations, its history, and everything about it, including its architecture and its open spaces. This love comes through in everything she does, in every initiative, decision, and vote that she took on this council. Jennifer voted with her conscience and with her heart. What more can be asked of an alderman? Jennifer, you also set an example for civil discourse and debate at council meetings. Every comment or exchange with staff or fellow council members or with the public was only in the most respectful and appropriate terms. But while being polite and respectful, you are nobody's easy mark. You have an independent, thorough, attentive, and studied approach to everything that you do for the city. Our community owes you a debt of gratitude beyond what it realizes. I know you will remain engaged with this community you love, spreading our good news in only the most positive ways. I'm excited to know what your next venture will be, because I know that whatever enterprise has the benefit of your considerable intellect, skills, and energy will succeed beyond anyone's expectations. And I suspect It will have an element of public service to it because that's just who you are. You will be deeply missed. Thank you for your service to our community. Thank you for your camaraderie and your friendship. You've been a breath of fresh air on this council. And by the way, I would be honored to carry your suitcase anywhere.
Jennifer, thank you for your service and all the contributions that were just stated on the marketing front. I think personally, it was really fun to be with you on the Public Works Committee. We had a lot of field trips to the water plant, and you know, you asked a lot of great questions, and it was very, very fun. I think we were really efficient and productive, and it wasn't just the marketing stuff that you brought. I really think you just shaped our conversations on the Public Works Committee, and I always ask great questions, and it was a real pleasure to serve with you on that committee and on the council, and just best of luck moving forward. So thank you for your service. Yeah, appreciate it.
Some of you may remember when Alderman Moreno and Beidler termed off, I wanted to keep my comments very brief. And I'd like to still try and hold with that tradition. I'm always a little leery following Alderman Preschlack. He's somewhat silver-tongued, and I'm, you know, he's like following a kid or a dog act. I mean, it's just never a good place to be. What an analogy, right? Yeah. But Jennifer, in all sincerity, although we do this happily and willingly, it does come with a certain amount of sacrifice, and I think that's something that at least all of us up here can acknowledge, and everybody who has been on council, and certainly the mayors. It comes at great expense, a lot of time, effort. It's an indication of your commitment to the community, what you believe in, and although some of us up here have disagreed on some matters, I think we can all agree that your heart has always been in the right place. And with that, we owe you a deep debt of gratitude for giving what you have given, which is quite a bit. Your presence has been uplifting, and we will miss you. But I just want to say thank you for everything that you have done and recognizing the commitment that you've made to the city of Lake Forest. So thank you.
Thank you, Errol.
Thank you. Alderman Karas. I think it's just been a little more than 2 years ago. I didn't know you from Adam nor from Eve. We did meet to have a friendly exchange of introductions to get to know one another better. We talked about our backgrounds, and it was clear we didn't have much in common. We were quite different. We talked about our interests, and again, not much overlap, a little bit of a generational difference too. We finally talked about our strengths, and then I knew I was in trouble because we recognized your strengths were in communication, marketing, social media, and creativity. For someone who loves to read law books and ordinances, that was totally different. Despite these differences, I did get to know you over the 2 years, and I acknowledge and acquiesce to the comments that have been made as to what you've done, what you've brought to the council, how you've been so dedicated, how you've been so hardworking and trying to improve the things we do here in Lake Forest for the betterment of our citizens. And by the way, you're a fantastic photographer. Because I do remember last October at the Lake Forest Open Lands Bagpipes and Bonfires. With my family, I still cherish the picture you took, but more importantly, I cherish the spirit, the friendship, the ambiance, and everything you exuberated as a photographer at that time, and it just indicates the type of person you are and who I've come to know. Let me come back and focus in on one matter of importance, and that's your efforts to enhance the communication to and from our citizens. something that is essential for good government. And it's not me talking. Let me take you back to 1789. A gentleman by the name of Thomas Jefferson.
Were you there?
I was there. But Thomas, my friend, said, whenever the people are well-informed, they can be trusted with their own government. So thank you for helping our citizens to be well-informed. It is an essential part of good government. After 2 years, I can say I think I do know you know. I do know you now. I know what you've contributed to the city, and I know we all thank you so much for what you've done. You've excelled in not just in improving the communication and marketing, but in fulfilling the mission that we have as aldermen. And that mission is to promote a community spirit of trust, community spirit of respect, and citizen involvement. You've installed the trust, you've garnered respect, and you've enhanced our citizen involvement. So thank you for doing a good job, and now that I know you, hopefully I can call you a good friend, Jennifer.
Certainly can, Ray. Thank you so much.
Last but not least, Jennifer, I knew that my fellow aldermen would have all these great things to say, so I'm going to keep it short. Your strengths of brand identity, marketing, and promotion of our wonderful community have greatly impacted the growth and love, L-O-V-E, of our city. You sincerely care for your neighbors and community at large. I respect you wholeheartedly and thank you for your contributions to this council, your neighbors, and the city as a whole. You are an inspiration. Thank you.
Yeah, Ray, thank you so much.
I'm going to get the last word in. I'm going to pull rank here. This marketing discussion that we've been having and that we've been working on, Jennifer's been leading for the last 2 years, had a purpose. And the purpose was to re-energize the real estate market in Lake Forest. And I think Jennifer should take full credit for the 1,200 new families that have moved to town in the last 2 years, COVID or no COVID. And on top of that, the crowning achievement is she decided along the way, in the middle of all this, to send her daughter to the most fabulous college, Kenyon College in Gambier, Ohio. So I can't say go lords or go ladies anymore because they are now owls. But anyway, just wanted to pass that on. But really, the purpose of all the marketing activity was to help the real estate market in this town, and I think it's really helped. I think it's really made a difference. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. May I? Thank you so much, all of you, for those wonderful comments. I'm really, really appreciative. Serving my community as a member of City Council has been a wonderful privilege and an experience for which I will always be grateful. I have the Lake Forest Caucus to thank for asking me to run for office and my constituents, the residents of the First Ward, for electing me. It has been a true pleasure to serve and to represent you. Among the greatest benefits of being in this position is the chance to interact with some of the best professionals working in local government. The competency, leadership, integrity, and dedication I've observed across this organization is nothing short of impressive. I've had a front row view into the inner workings of city government and its operation, and have watched all of you rise to every type of occasion with excellence. Thank you for the important role you play every day in making Lake Forest one of the best towns to live in America. Not long after I began my term as alderman, I was inundated with emails and calls concerning a planned rally taking place in Market Square. An event of this sort had never occurred in our town, and many grew worried it wouldn't end well. I distinctly remember a conversation, or two, or three, I had with Chief Waldorf, who very calmly explained the plan in place and that he had the utmost confidence in its execution. He was right. In fact, that day, the speakers, the hundreds of residents who attended, and the manner in which LFPD anticipated, planned, and oversaw the gathering that took place should be recognized as one of Lake Forest's finest moments. Lake Forest is a very special place, and we, its community, are what make it most special. Before succeeding Prue Beidler as alderman, I served on the board, then as chairman of Croya. I've continued to stay connected to Croya as its liaison to city council. There's no other youth organization like it anywhere. Todd Nahigian, Croya's leader of 25 years, has come before this board to highlight its recent work and accomplishments. And last month, we heard from 2 class of 22 graduates who credit Croya for saving them from the overwhelming pressures and ensuing anxiety of life as a teen today. Croya's vital role in supporting Lake Forest and Lake Bluff youth for more than 40 years cannot be overemphasized. Thank you, Todd, Rick, Catherine, Leslie, and Susan for your tremendous commitment and passion. I've loved getting to know you and the committee representing our young adults. Reflecting an authentic picture of our community and fostering citizen engagement was a core focus of the marketing committee I led. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for asking me to assume that role and continue the work Prue started to reinvigorate Lake Forest's reputation as one of the area's most desirable places. Of course, when we entered the age of COVID, everyone wanted to be here, and we couldn't blame them. The committee prioritized other meaningful initiatives and went to work hand in hand with Assistant City Manager Mike Strong, former Communications Manager Susan Banks, and current Communications Manager Dana Olson. It was a great deal of work, but every worthwhile endeavor is worth the while and the effort, regardless of difficulty. We introduced Lake Forest Station, a first-of-its-kind pop-up to benefit local nonprofits. The seasonal shop brought together organizations and residents at a time when being together and being able to support beloved groups in town lifted spirits. The station will reopen again for a 4th time in November for the holiday season. As local media outlets disappeared, it became apparent we needed a mechanism to publish the wide spectrum of stories that illuminate the unique people and places of Lake Forest. Lake Forest Love was born, and we are extremely fortunate to have the talented David Sweet at its helm as editor-at-large. The Marketing Committee is also proud of initiating the redesign of the Lake Forest Dialogue, rebuilding a coalition of prominent long-serving community organizations, rekindling an internship program with Lake Forest College, and getting the groundwork started for what I hope will one day blossom into a thriving summer Saturday market in West Lake Forest with live entertainment and food trucks. I am incredibly grateful for the time committee members made over the past 2 years to achieve several significant outcomes. Thank you to Mark Pasquazi, Katie Frecco, Wendy Franzen, Rick Day, Michelle Hirschfield, Garrett D., Susan Amory Wenninger, who made up our exceptionally talented team. And thank you, Dana Olson, who's not here today, very much for catching the fastball we threw at you as soon as you arrived and for maintaining momentum without missing a beat. You are a hugely valuable asset to the city. I'd like to acknowledge and thank the residents who engage in our process. It takes time to identify when meetings will occur and what topics will be addressed. We teach our children to raise their hands, ask questions, and get involved because their questions matter and their voices are relevant. It's a lesson we encourage them to embrace as students and to continue throughout their lives as American citizens. I'm proud to see the level of interest taken in city matters and applaud those who attend board and council meetings to participate and weigh in. Your voices matter and matter greatly. A few words on elected office. When I sat before the full Lake Forest caucus, I was grilled with questions about serving with integrity, making decisions without bias, and whether I could withstand political pressure. Those were easy questions. I brought to this position the qualities I have exhibited and for which I've been recognized my entire life. I performed my role as alderman the way I have approached every important responsibility, with the utmost integrity, dedication, decency, hard work, the highest standards, and leadership. I contemplated challenging issues by listening, inquiring, reading, investigating, understanding, and ultimately determining what I believed to be in the best long-term interest of our city and its residents for generations to come. In closing, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about women in government. Every governing body thrives best when composed of committed, qualified members with different backgrounds and experiences. Lake Forest is trending in the right direction, having elected 3 women to an 8-member city council for the past 8 years. We need more women in our community to take part in government, and I encourage those with time and interest to consider the valuable role they can play through the Lake Forest Caucus or serving on one of our city's nearly 20 boards and commissions. The more diversity at the table and in the process, the better the outcome for all of us. Finally, thank you, Jed, for for your ongoing support and guidance. I'm grateful to have spent my time on City Council working alongside you representing our ward, and to my other fellow colleagues on this council. I've enjoyed getting to know each of you and working together. There is no doubt in my mind how much we all love and care about Lake Forest and our community, and with good reason. There's just no place like it. It has been a truly great honor to serve this extraordinary city, wonderful community, and the place our family calls home.
Very well done.
Thank you.
Why don't you get your husband or daughter to come up and get a picture with your bouquet?
Does she take a picture with us?
Sure. Can we get you guys down in front of the whole council
Why don't we
here?
get a whole picture? Just go over here and stand over here. Yeah, everybody gets. the-
Congratulations, you get your bride back. At least for a little while.
Okay. It's very precise here. Scoot over. There you go.
Everybody. Right. We have one more vote. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the first, actually, do we adjourn this and then reconvene? Okay, so a motion to adjourn this session. We'll be back in about 5 minutes to start the second session.
So moved.
Maybe, oh, just keep going? Okay. All right. Alderman Karas has made the first motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
A little bit opposed.
2 minutes. Anybody need to take a quick break? Welcome to the second session of the Monday, July 18th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Forest City Council. Will the city clerk please call the roll? Or do we have to administer the oath first before you can call the roll?
So can I call for the organization of the 2022, 2023 Lake Forest City Council?
Sorry, I don't think I've ever done this before. We were in COVID, you know.
I know. Will Alderman-elect please join me for their oath of office? Alderman-elect Novit, Alderman-elect Preschlack, and Alderman-elect Weber.
Can I unbang the gavel? It's like unringing the bell.
I state your name. Having been elected to the office of Alderman. Of the city of Lake Forest. In the county of Lake. And state of Illinois. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the state of Illinois. And that I will discharge the duties of said office. According to the best of my ability. Congratulations.
Yeah, and he's just out of town, so we'll get him the next time. Okay. Okay, now, welcome to the second session of the Lake Forest City Council meeting, July 18th, 2022. Will the city clerk please call the roll?
Certainly. Honorable Mayor Pandeleon.
Here.
Alderman Morris.
Here?
Alderman Novit. Here. Alderman Rummel.
Here.
Alderman Preschlack.
Here.
Alderman Gashgarian.
Here.
Alderman Bushman.
Here.
Alderman Weber.
Here.
Mr. Mayor, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Biddy. First item on the agenda is comments by the mayor, and I would like to propose a resolution of appreciation for outgoing Ward 1 Alderman Jennifer Winnick Karras, who served from May 2020 until about 5 minutes ago. Whereas during her term of office, she served as a member of the City Council and Finance Committee, served on the Public Works Committee, and as chairman of the Marketing Committee, and was liaison to the Croya Board. And whereas as chairman of the Marketing Committee, Jennifer collaborated with city staff and members of an ad hoc committee charged with the goal of developing a marketing plan to promote the city of Lake Forest to current and future residents. And whereas Jennifer created Lake Forest Love, a blog destination where amazing stories of our community are curated and shared. Jennifer believes there are so many ways to fall in love with Lake Forest: the open spaces, schools, extraordinary organizations, community spirit, lakefront, retail and dining offerings, and its kind and generous heart. And whereas Jennifer, in an effort to showcase the local nonprofit organizations within the community, incorporated the talents of many to create a seasonal pop-up shop to raise visibility for local organizations. And whereas she has devoted much valuable time and personal attention to the work of these committees and the duties of the City Council, and on behalf of the residents of Lake Forest, continually met her responsibilities with purpose and dedication. And whereas the citizens of Lake Forest recognize and are deeply appreciative of the valuable time and service contributed to the preservation and improvement of the quality of life in our community, now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Lake Forest, Illinois, hereby expresses its profound gratitude and the profound gratitude of the citizens of Lake Forest to Jennifer Winnick Karras for the loyal and faithful public service she has given by means of this resolution, which shall be spread upon the permanent records of the City Council. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And I have, this is, okay. This is the black.
Real thing.
Yep.
Another photo op. That's good. That's a good one. Someone get that in the picture, guys. He's running. I don't know. Busy lady. Get the family. You want to get the family too?
I'll be at the end.
Come back this way. That's good. I'll just stay that way? Yeah.
Yeah, well, not quite. We have, next item is comments by the city manager.
I have no more this evening, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. We have two omnibus items. Oh, opportunity for citizens to address the council on non-agenda items. Anybody else? Okay. Omnibus, 2 items. Approval of the regularly scheduled meetings of the Lake Forest City Council for the year 2023. And number 2, consideration of a request to waive the fidelity bond requirement in connection with holding a raffle in the city of Lake Forest for the McKinlock Post number 264 American Legion and Friends of Lake Forest Parks and Recreation Foundation. This is an approval by motion. Any items that any member of the council would like to remove or have taken separately? Okay, in that case, I would entertain a motion to approve. Maybe our newest alderman might make the first motion. Do I have a second? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Alderman Kashgarian.
Aye.
Alderman Bushman.
Aye.
Alderman Weber.
Aye.
Alderman Morris.
Aye.
Alderman Novit.
Aye.
Alderman Rummel.
Aye.
7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries. Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Peschlack. I'm sorry.
I got one more, I got two more, oh, a year and a half.
Skipped right over you.
Aye.
Thank you. 7 yea, 0 nay, motion carries.
Okay, any comments by council members before we adjourn or have a motion to adjourn?
Just a welcome to our new
Yeah. So I want to say thanks, Jennifer. and-
alderman, yeah.
Well, thank you. I feel I have ridiculously big shoes to fill. Thank you very much for that. I'm looking forward to it. I appreciate the opportunity to help and to serve. And thanks to the caucus for slating me and First Ward for electing me. And I'm looking forward to it. Thanks.
We're delighted to have you here, and you do have big shoes to fill, no question about it. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.